Well, welcome to the Akkad and Koka Report, episode 18. We have the pleasure today of having Dr. Gajendra Singh, who's a surgeon in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he is on the show today to discuss the recent activities he's been having in court. But in this particular instance, these are good things. And typically, physicians hate being in court, but in this particular case, Dr. Gajendra Singh has filed a suit against, as I understand it, local hospitals as well as the governor and the state, essentially, about certificate of need laws that are essentially inhibiting and are anti-competitive to what he wants to do. And what he wanted to do was to set up a imaging facility and be able to do MRIs there every day. And he ran into somewhat of a regulatory thicket, and as opposed to what most physicians do, which is whine and post on Facebook, he actually decided to do something about it and file a suit. So welcome, Dr. Singh. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your story. I read your story in Vox, who had a nice spread on this a couple of days ago. But tell me a little bit about where it is you started practicing and how it is you got to where you are today.
So I'm actually in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which is about an hour and a half from Raleigh.
Oh, sorry.
And I started my private practice in 2012. So I'm trained as a liver transplant and a hepatobiliary surgeon. So my practice is general surgery and hepatobiliary pancreatic surgery and complex GI cancer and laparoscopic surgery. In my career, I have seen a lot of patients who need a lot of imaging done. CT and MRI and all sorts of imaging. I've been like kind of humanitarian all my life. I have given away and tried to help poor patients. And when I hear from the patients that they have a small job, they make $1,500, and they go to emergency room, end up getting a $10,000 bill, and it is difficult to pay. If I get a $10,000 bill today myself, I don't think I have $10,000 in my pocket to pay off that kind of stuff. So for a smaller community person who's got a small job and a family, so I keep hearing these things over and over, and then I decided, there's something needs to be done about it. Last year, I needed my own ultrasound, and they said it's going to cost me about $1,000 to get my ultrasound plus $200 some to read it. So I'm looking about $1,300, $1,400 just for a simple ultrasound. And so I just picked up my prescription from the imaging center. I walked out of there and I said, thank you. And I was walking out of there, I decided I'm going to open my own imaging center. This was June in 2017. In August 2017, I had imaging center open with ultrasound. And slowly we put down CT and then MRI and X-ray machine. And now we are full service imaging center. The way we operate is our prices are single flat fee for patients who have no insurance. We include all the reading fee in the single flat fee, because most of the places that you go, they won't tell you how much it's going to cost you for the imaging most of the time. Even if you get to, get a price from somewhere, you will get some other bills for, reading fee and the facility fee and all those sorts of stuff that comes months after. For a simple, CT scan and MRI end up just getting several $1,000s, which is very expensive. What we did, first thing, we eliminated everything, single fee. You come in here, you pay this much money, and then you're done. You won't get any other bill. Second thing, our prices are on website. We are the only people, as far as I know, in the state who have prices upfront on the website. So before you even come in here, you know how much it's going to cost you. When you call and look for the prices, they're looking at the same website as you're looking. It's not like, we told you $200 over the phone and we come in and then we're going to ask you $2,000 or send you another bill. That doesn't happen here. And we have the flyer for the marketing purpose. We have prices on it. So the people, providers, mid-levels, everybody knows how much it's going to cost before they come over here. So my goal is to provide affordable care plus complete transparency. We have a right to know how much it's going to cost, because a lot of time when we go in there, in the hospital, emergency room, doctor's office, there's no way to know how much it's going to cost. And it's regardless how much money you make and who you are. Like if you walk in a grocery store, if it's a bag of chips, it doesn't matter if you're wearing, an expensive $2,000 suit or you're a homeless person. If it's $2, it's $2. And I think imaging services or healthcare services should be like that. It should be same for everyone, and it should be affordable. It's not like somebody's paying $200, somebody's paying $2,000. So that's my philosophy. Fair with everyone, transparent, low cost, and affordable.
Wow, wonderful. So, Michelle, what do you think about this?
So that sounds great. We obviously are very supportive of this, but just give us a little more detail. Did you have partners or radiologists join in your practice, or how did you do that in practical terms?
I did everything on my own because I wanted to have complete control. I did have multiple offers from radiologists and business people and other people. They wanted to come in and offer me money and said, like, no, why don't you go enjoy your life and we will run this place. Well, I didn't start this place to make money. If I wanted to do that, I would have charged $2,000 for an MRI. People would still come because, the places across the street charge $5,000. But my conscience didn't allow it. I wanted to charge very low cost, as much as I could afford to run this place. And if I made partners who were businessmen or venture capitalists or cardiologists, or radiologists, they would say like, hey, we're not making money. We got to jack up the prices. And that would defeat the purpose of starting. So I'm the sole owner.
Right. And you didn't try to come up with a business plan or see how much you need to break even or anything like that? Or did you invest in any heavy equipment at the beginning, or you just started with just the ultrasound machines?
You just start with ultrasound machine to see how would we go and how the response is going to be from the community. And slowly, one thing after another, I started with the one ultrasound machine, then we put down another one, and then CT, and then MRI, and then the X-ray machine. So one step at a time. So it took we started in August of last year, and we put down our CT and MRI mid-February this year. So it took us about a little over 6 months before we were 100% sure that we were able to, or I was going to be able to do it, because I make all the decisions regarding financial stuff and doing stuff. And regarding running the imaging center in practice, we have really good staff members who have 20 some experience doing imaging and administration and everything. So we all get together and just make planning and decision how to do things. But at the end of the day, it comes down on my shoulder.
Right. So
tell us when did you run into a roadblock, or did patients start to show up from the get-go? I would imagine
No, it was difficult. The reason is that suppose if you go to Best Buy and there is a 4K TV for $5,000 and somebody is selling the same TV on Craigslist for $1,000, you're gonna think, well, is it broken or is it stolen or something? So in the beginning, I did not put my name on the imaging center. My name carries a lot more weight. I've been around for a long time, and I have a decent reputation in the state and out of the state. So, but I wanted to keep myself separate from the imaging center, so I didn't put my name on the imaging center. And we just came out as for the imaging center, and people thought we were crooks. And they thought this is some kind of scam. And they, even I heard from some of the doctor's office, how is it possible? We've been paying $5,000 or $6,000 for MRI. How can he get it done? The CT scan for $400, the ultrasound for $200, and echo. You guys are cardiologists. We do echocardiogram here for $300. That includes the cardiologist fee. And so that's just crazy. This sounds. Everybody thinks does he have instruments in there, or the people from Walmart working over there? Does he have a broken instrument? So there was a lot of skepticism in the beginning. People really didn't believe that what we were trying to do. They thought we were trying to scam people. Just we were fraud. So then I put my name on it. So I said well, when I keep hearing people are calling and saying are you real for this thing, or are you just trying to defraud people? Do you have a license and all this stuff? So I said let me just put my name on it. So when I attached my name on it, then people realized, well, he is a trustworthy person. He wouldn't do this thing. So that kind of changed the tide a little bit. We do have some pushback from the local hospital And, I'm the only solo surgeon or like an independent surgeon in the 50-mile area, as far as you know. Most of the doctors are either hospital owned or large group which are affiliated with the hospital. So we do get pushback from the hospital that they want to send all their patients from their doctors to their own system. Patient wants to come here, so that's still a fight. But the main fight is not having my own MRI. That's because of the con law.
Right. So let's get to this in a moment. But just what about for? Did you have any trouble getting local laws to put your CT scanner or anything like that, or was that relatively straightforward?
No, it was not straightforward. We had to build a room, building codes and permission from the state and all the stuff. So that was a lot of work, but we got it done. But we didn't have any direct pushback from the hospital or anybody else, hey, you can't do this. They didn't want me to do this, and I heard it, they just wanted me to stop and shut down and leave town. But my goal is to just, stay here and just help out people. So it's always difficult when you're trying to just do something which is different, revolutionary. People don't want to do it, or it's not in their financial interest.
So you were encountering the usual roadblocks that a lot of business people, when they're starting out, encounter. Right? Getting buy-in from
yes.
In your case, patients, getting buy-in from referring doctors, and you're working through all that, right? And
yes.
But then you ran into something that even you, you seem like a very resourceful gentleman who doesn't take no for an answer very often. But even you now ran into a roadblock that you could not surmount. So go ahead and tell us. And it happened when you started to try to offer MRIs. So what did you find out when you tried to offer MRIs?
So when we were working on to put things in stone, I looked into the policies. What were the policies for imaging center and MRI? I went to Raleigh and talked to the folks in the state office what were the policies, and they said you cannot have MRI unless you have a certificate of need. I spent quite a bit of time, and then people actually in that office are really nice and very cooperative. They explained. They said it was not in their hand. These are the policies. So I couldn't do anything unless I apply for a CON. And I'm not sure if you have the detail how it works in North Carolina for CON. The county is the CON is based on a county. So right now I am in Forsyth County. Now there is no need. The state has decided there is no need for any MRI in this county. Now, for me to get an MRI, first I have to create a need. That takes about 2 or 3 year process and takes about several $100,000 from the attorney fee to apply for all this process. Now, you
have to demonstrate the need. You have to show that somehow that there's limited access or that people are not getting. Right. So you have to
so you have to show. So the way it works, how much population is in the air and how many scanners are in the air and how many scans are doing. So suppose you got a 1 million population, you got a 20 CT scanner, and per CT scan you can do 1,000 images a year, and you are just overloading those scanners. Then you can argue according to the state, these scanners are being overworked, so there is a need we can have one more scanner. But that doesn't work that way, because all these big hospital and imaging center can say, you know what, we got enough CT scanner and an MRI, he doesn't need to have one. We can do all that stuff.
Plus it's misleading because it doesn't by itself tell you really anything about the real need, because
yes.
Again, at the prices that are currently people have to pay for, maybe the hospitals invest in fewer MRIs, or it doesn't reflect what the natural need would be.
So I was going to come into that. It's not the state decide on based on the county. Now we are not based only on one county. We have patients who are coming from 2 or 3 hours. They're driving 2 or 3 hours, so they are 10 counties away from here. So we have at least 20 or 30 different counties from there, patients coming to us. So that's one single thing just against the con law, because you're restricting those resources to one county. But if you have better facilities available, affordable, people will come from different counties, and we can do this throughout the state and throughout the country. So the common law process is kind of like a foolish defaulted process as it is. So suppose if I spend several $100,000 and applied for a certificate of need in this county, and most of the time it will be contested by the mobile companies, will be contested by the local hospital and imaging center. And suppose for sake of argument, I won that after several years and I'm spending several $100,000. When the need is created, it doesn't come to me automatically. Means the Forsyth County has one more MRI scanner available. Now anyone in the country, not in the state, anyone in country can apply for that MRI. So I did all the hard work. I spent all the money. I waited for several years. I fought for a year, but I don't get it. I just created a need, and now even you two of you guys can come here and say there's an MRI in Forsyth County and we want to open an MRI center. So you can take that MRI which I created the need. So in my opinion, that doesn't make any sense. This process doesn't make any sense. So this keeps the upper hand to the incumbent big hospital corporation who's got money. They make $500 million to $1 billion in this area. These hospitals, they got like army of attorneys, and they fight tooth and nail not to let anybody come in the market so they can keep their prices artificially inflated. And they have resources, they can bring the prices down, but they keep the prices inflated.
So you ran into this regulatory roadblock, and they said, it's nothing to do with the policy has changed. The certificate of the certificate. Before I ask you a question, I just want to point out the certificate of need laws. Interestingly, came about in order to make sure that there was enough healthcare for all.
Right.
The first state to do it was in 1974
Right.
in New York, and then years later, the federal government stepped in and added another layer of regulation and said, every state must have a CON law to manage healthcare resources because, God forbid, people like Dr. Singh and Dr. Akkad maybe set up these centers willy-nilly, and then they'll be forcing people to come get their scans, and there'll be too many scans done. So in order to manage that, the federal government said, well, if you want to get federal funds, every state must have some CON law. So there was a brief period of time where every state, except for one, I think, somehow St. Louis or something, had a CON law. And then one by one, the state CON laws have been unwinding over time. So most of them have been getting repealed. In your particular case, you're a state I see that still has I guess a pretty strong CON framework. For some reason, most of the South, there's a map here. I'm going to try to share the screen real quick just to show folks. Or maybe I won't. Where's share screen here? I can't find it, but there's a map. There's an interesting map that shows that.
We'll put it on the show notes.
Yeah,
you can get that from the Mercatus Center.
Right,
website.
from the Mercatus Center. That is, that most of the South has pretty strong CON laws. Though a lot of other places are getting it repealed. But it goes. I mean, you're pointing out the idiocy and the complete nonsensical manner that you have management of healthcare resources when you give it up to a bunch of bureaucrats in some place that are completely disconnected from the ground, right? And you get all kinds of things happening. One, they have no clue what the actual demand is. And two, you leave open all these shenanigans that can happen when, now you have a small panel of people that control whether or not you can add an imaging center or not. And that is corruption waiting to happen. So now you have all these massive lobbying groups that are funneling money into politicians and to various other peoples in an attempt to manipulate them to not add an imaging center or to add an imaging center just for them, right? So it just shows you the problems with overregulation. But coming back to you, your next step once you ran into the CON roadblock was not to say. Well, you had a workaround actually, right? You had a workaround with a MRI machine,
right?
Mobile unit or something.
So if you, I don't know if you got a chance to watch our press conference, which was in Raleigh on Tuesday. It was a big press conference, and we had IG attorneys in there, local attorney and media people, and we covered all these topics in those things, like that. Actually, in North Carolina, the Supreme Court of North Carolina repeal this and strike it down. I was believe 1978.
Right.
But the legislation went back 2 years later, and then they turned around and they changed the laws and rules and then reenacted. Now, I don't know about the other states, but I think most states, especially North Carolina, the legislature is really backed up by the American Hospital Association, and they have the officials in the hospital association and local level, the state level, mostly are the members from the big hospitals. Right. The CEOs and other staff, they make the decisions. So when you have a big, strong lobbying for the hospital, I don't think they would lobby for the general community, for you and me. They will lobby for the hospital to make money.
Right.
So now, another loophole in the CON thing is like, you can't buy your own MRI, but you can rent an MRI. And that has to be state regulated, and you have to move that mobile MRI every week. That doesn't make any sense because that adds up the cost, because I have MRI and I have to move it. It's owned by a mobile company, and right now I can get it only 2 days a week. So we have only over the weekends. If the average cost of MRI leasing is very expensive. So if I lease an MRI for every single day and we open 7 days a week, so if I lease an MRI of 350 days a year, the cost of leasing for an MRI for 1 year is more than I can purchase an MRI for lifetime. So that is like, it's a very wrong business model, because if I have to pay a lot more money just to have it for 2 days, I'm going to have to recoup those prices from somewhere, and I'm going to have to raise the prices. But if I can do more MRI and offer every single day, and now we have to turn down the patients on the weekdays. So those patients have to go somewhere and pay more money. If I can do MRIs on the weekdays, I can make more money. I can probably bring my prices further down if there's more room in there.
So Dr. Singh, I have a brilliant idea. Me and Dr. Akkad will buy an MRI machine, and we will then lease it to you. And just to satisfy the moving requirement, we will find a local McDonald's and move it every day.
You can do
McDonald's
that.
Parking lot.
You can do that because that you have to have a certificate of need for mobile too.
Oh.
So the mobile company has to get a certificate of need, and the certificate of need is in the county based. So if that mobile is assigned to Forsyth County, so if I can use only for 2 days, that mobile cannot go to different county unless they have a certificate of need in another county. So somehow, these rules are kind of like inflating prices for the mobile companies too, because they have to do all this paperwork to maintain. Suppose somebody else asks them in another county, can I have MRI? So they have to go to the state and file the paperwork, pay the fee, and they have to recoup the prices. That comes from me, and then that finally ultimately comes from the community. So this whole process is rigged.
This is crazy. So what's the strategy here? What is the claim that you made in court, and how are you hoping to move forward?
We have 4 different claims. I don't have a complaint in front of me, and I usually defer those questions to our attorneys. And there is an open complaint out there, is public complaint. There's 4 claims, I think it's anti-monopoly, and I don't remember all 4 of them. And we are based on the same discussion which we had when the Supreme Court struck down this policy in 1978. And it's kind of surprising that since 78, nobody has picked up that where it was left off and tried to fight it. So our goal is to go back to the same place where Supreme Court left off and strike it down and start over there. Right. So we have already filed a lawsuit. I think that was filed on Monday, this last Monday, that was 30th. And it's already in the court. And from there, we just have to move on to see what court has to say.
So, and fundamentally, it sounds like you're arguing that, monopolies are not legal. You're not allowed to have a monopoly. And so,
even in the state of North Carolina legislature, monopolistic business techniques are illegal.
Right. And so essentially, it seems so obvious and clear that what is going on here is an effort to preserve the status quo group of powerful folks that have imaging centers, that you're essentially challenging their monopolistic practices that are anti-competitive to you, right? I mean, you have,
Right.
if I mean, you happen to be a surgeon and have a can make a living without it, but suppose you're somebody who wanted to start an imaging center. I mean, essentially, you can't do that, right? With these type
Right.
of practices that are out there. So
Right.
that's great. How did you get involved with the Institute of Justice? Is that right? The Institute of Justice? Is
Right.
that the
Institute
name?
for Justice.
Yeah.
Institute for
Who are
Justice.
they? And what?
So they're based out of Arlington, Virginia, DC. So
Okay.
they are one of the largest nonprofit law firm in the country. The only thing they do is they do public cases like
Okay.
me. So they, as far as I know, they don't do any kind of commercial litigation. So you don't hire them.
Sure.
They come and talk to you, and you say if it is in a public interest, they fight for it.
Okay.
And they are very resourceful. They have very smart, intelligent attorneys. They're really brilliant. They have resources at every level at the legal process throughout the country. They represent in every single state, and based out of DC, they're influential, and they've been doing this for a long time.
I agree. They're very good.
Yeah, I talked to them. When I talked to them first time, I was really impressed with how smart they were, because they had done their homework before. When I sent out my email first time, they reached back to me, and I was really impressed, how smart they were, and they had done their homework, and they knew what they were doing.
Right, they're very good, and there is plenty of data and studies that have been done. And so Anish was mentioning a map of all the states and their different con laws. So there has been, and we'll put those on the show notes. Plenty of studies that show, because now we can compare when the federal law was repealed back in the 70s, the law that was actually that set the whole process in motion by subsidizing, encouraging the states to have con laws. Then the federal law was repealed. And after the federal law was repealed, then certain states started repealing their own con laws. So now you can compare states with con laws versus states without con laws, and what it does to access, to quality, to affordability, and so forth. And it's clear that on all these points that it's much better not to have con laws. So I think you'll have a lot of ammunitions in your claim and your complaints.
Yeah, now there are 14 states who have completely repealed the con law. North Carolina is one of the worst one, which has, I think, certificate of need in is about 25 different specialties. And so they try to control every single thing to kind of like providing any kind of care. See, you can't do anything without permission from the state. So it makes providing care becomes very difficult when you're trying to do the right thing for the patient and the community.
Yeah.
Like as a cardiologist, you know how much is charged to get an echocardiogram. The hospital close by over here, they charge between $2,000 to $3,000 for an echo.
Oh,
and
of
we
course.
For $300.
Yeah. So in my own practice, I have a cash-based practice, and I offer echocardiogram stress tests for I would say a quarter of the price, or maybe even less, maybe 15% of the price that would be charged. Certainly at the academic medical centers around here, they would charge, $2,000, $3,000, sometimes more for an echocardiogram, which is crazy.
But, the other important thing is that you're demonstrating that there is a path forward out of our healthcare mess, right? The healthcare mess we hear about constantly is healthcare is too expensive in the United States, and there aren't enough people that have access to healthcare, correct? And everyone always says that, look, there's going to be a trade-off, that either you have lots of resources, or you have to pay a lot, and or vice versa, right? You have to ration healthcare, otherwise, we're not going to be able to afford it. And this is starting to become more and more obvious to more and more people. But the problem, as you're highlighting so beautifully, is that the unit price of healthcare is out of control. And you can have your cake and eat it too, if you simply reduced the price that we're paying for each widget of healthcare that we're consuming. So, if you reduced the price of MRI by 60, 70, 80%, like you're doing, you can actually increase access to everyone. And as you're saying, you're by lowering the cost, you're increasing access to not just the rich hedge fund manager, you're lowering the cost and allowing access at these price points to a large swath of the population. And
exactly.
So you're demonstrating a way forward, and you're also demonstrating that the reason why healthcare is so expensive isn't necessarily because of the greedy physician who wants to order 25 MRIs on each patient in order to make a buck. The reason healthcare is so incredibly expensive is because there is a monopoly in place that is empowered by the legislators.
Right.
That is keeping the unit price of healthcare incredibly high, and I really hope folks see the story for what it is on all the multiple different levels.
So if you, and I would, on your statement, I would add that, if you read the North Carolina's con law, it says why they endorse and recommend the con law. So they say you have to provide the services to poor and needy people, increase the accessibility, decrease the prices, and all sorts of those things. Well, unfortunately, the con law, which it is made for, is kind of hindering and prohibiting all those causes it is made for. By making my own imaging center, I have proved that I have reduced the prices in the market in this area. The competing imaging center have started to drop their prices. And then you can see it, that they were charging twice as much. And since I have opened imaging center, they are trying to match my price. They can't, because people sitting over there making millions of dollars in their salaries, so they have to pay all those overheads. And here we are trying to provide the community service, so they can't match those prices. And whatever con actually asks for, we are providing all those services. So if we can eliminate this little hurdle from there, and I can get more services without any red tape on it, I think I can provide better services than other places out there.
Of course,
and more efficiently and more affordable.
It makes no sense to imagine that by restricting, by having restrictive laws, that you will improve access. I mean, that really makes no sense.
No,
Dr. Singh, are you the only, the first case of a legal challenge to the con laws that you know of?
In North Carolina, yes.
Or in the country?
Places. Yeah, there are other places. They have, I think, Institute for Justice is working on a con law in Iowa, and I think they had done one in Virginia. But in North Carolina, this is the first one.
Okay.
The only counter I've seen is that some health policy person sitting in some some health policy gentleman I saw was quoted as saying, well, these certificate of need laws are needed because if you have lots and lots of imaging centers, you will induce lots and lots and lots of demand. So are you worried if the CON laws go away, Dr. Singh, that there will be suddenly 25 people with MRI machines all saying that, oh yes, you need an MRI for your back pain? And follow-up question, should we care?
Okay, there's two things in there. Once the CON goes away and when you have the prices coming down, you're going to see increase in imaging studies. And the reason for that, we see these patients who have been holding on to getting the MRI or CT scan done because they could not afford it. And all of a sudden, we getting phone call, I need an MRI. I was told 3 years ago that I need an MRI or CT scan. The unfortunate part and the sad part is when I see the patient, because I'm the CEO and the medical director right now. And a lot of time when they see something suspicious on the CT scan, then they call and ask me, hey, can you step in here? Would you mind looking at this image while we're scanning the patient? And the story is that the patient has been holding to get this CT or MR done for the last several years, maybe having pain here and there, and they had cancer and it is already metastatic. And this is so sad to see because this could have been prevented if they had their access to these imaging studies, if they were affordable. And this young patient, when they come and they have imaging studies and they're like, oh, thank God, you are here. We can get the CT scan done. Hopefully everything will be fine. And the sad part is when you look at the imaging and you see you got a metastatic cancer because they could not afford it. And now they're too young and they're going to die too soon. So you are going to see some increase in the beginning because people are holding on to this imaging study because they have to decide, are they going to pay their monthly rent, their kids' school fee, groceries or their MRI. If I was there making no money, then I would hold on to my MRI as long as I could. I would just pay my rent of my house, the kids' fee, and food on the table. I'll think about MRI later on. And this is what happens when you don't have access to the healthcare. The results are worse, and it has been shown in multiple studies in multiple states. When the healthcare is not accessible, the patient don't present to the doctor's office on time. Even my surgical practice, I see it all the time. The patient who have insurance, they got abdominal pain, they show up, they got appendicitis, they got a surgery done, they go home within 6 hours or next morning. But somebody who doesn't have a job, they sit on home, they take some Tylenol, some ibuprofen, they just ponder on it for a week or so, and then they are brought out to the emergency room by the family members because they're passed out. Then you see they got perforated appendix, perforated colon, they got a stool all over the belly. Now they're spending 2 months in the hospital because they need colectomy and they're going to be in the hospital. That increases the cost of the healthcare. And this is not one time, this is multiple studies have shown those things. So, should we care? No, because our goal as a doctor is to provide the care. And the second thing, as a human, we have to provide affordable care. We all, want to live a happy life. A lot of people think doctors are rich and they don't care. But most of the doctors wants to help people. It is just the corporation or capitalism that's killing the healthcare.
Right. No. Excellent points. Well, we'll try to wrap up. It's a just a great story. I'm so thankful and amazed that we found you, and I'm thankful that you are doing this. It's really great.
What's the timeline, Dr. Singh? What do you expect to happen in the next few weeks or months or?
We just filed the lawsuit, so we are not sure at this time that how long it's going to last. We have a lot of public support, and we are hoping that we can take it to the legislation and change the law before we even go to the court. Mm-hmm. Before we fight, we are in the court, but before we fight, if we can do that, then we can help out a lot more people a lot sooner rather than trying to fight and spend and waste our time and money on these things, which we shouldn't have to. In my personal opinion, everyone, regardless of race, religion, age, financial status, or nationality, should have access to healthcare, and not only access, affordable access, so they don't have to sell their houses or car or borrow money to just pay for their doctor's visit or ER visit. This is a simple human right. We should all have that. And if we all work together, I think we can make it happen sooner or later.
Absolutely. Now, on that note, would you, people who live in North Carolina, if they want to support your cause, is there a place you would advise them to contact, or should they contact the Institute of Justice, or is it too early at this point, or should they contact their legislature?
No, it's never late. What we are suggesting people is on my Facebook page and Facebook profile, which is a public profile, and we are recommending people to write letter, appeals, recommendations, send their bills, their experience, and what the Institute of Justice or Institute for Justice has recommended to send all those to me, and I compile all those together and send it to them. So then we can take it to the court and say, listen, we got 100,000 people. They are saying the same thing what we are saying. So that would be the great thing, and a lot of my patients and the people and friends I know, they said, if we need to go to DC for you, we will go, because what you're trying to do is the right thing to do. And that's what I would say. If we all stand together, I think we can fight it and we can change what is wrong with our healthcare system.
It's absolutely the right thing to do, and we'll have your contact information on the show notes for people to reach you. And,
absolutely,
other will be encouraged and try to do this in other states as well, because as you said, there are 35 states right now that still have con laws, and that needs to change.
That's the plan. Start from here, and then we're gonna go all over the country and remove and repeal con law all over the country. So I think I would say I started this fight and journey, and hopefully joining hands with the Institute for Justice, we can work together. And then physicians and people like you who want to be part of this thing. So if we all work together, there is a strength in numbers. We can grow pretty fast. And then we can take it to the whole national level and just take it away from the corporation and just give it back to the community.
Are you familiar with the Surgery Center of Oklahoma?
I do. I know.
Okay, because I'm sure they'd be interested. They do the same kind of work. I don't think Oklahoma does not have con laws. I don't believe, but at any rate, I think they'd be instrumental in helping spread the word as well, because they also believe in price transparencies and making this as affordable as possible.
Yeah, that's my future plan. Like, wish I had money and resources. Like, I would open a hospital and provide the care like the way I do for the imaging too.
It will happen because the system is unsustainable. The normal system is unsustainable, and efforts like yours will pay off over time. And we start with imaging centers, outpatient surgery, and so forth. And now we can provide care at home for a lot of people very affordably. And technology is getting cheaper, so we can do these things, better and better. And
we have to start somewhere. And I think I started rolling that ball. Now we have to just all work together and just keep rolling it until we win everything, and we win it for the community or for the people. And I think we need to take the healthcare away from the corporations and just give it back to the doctors and the medical professionals who know what they want to do, the right thing. I don't think doctors are bad out there. The people wants to, all the physicians, a lot of them, they wants to send the patients to me as a surgeon or as an imaging center. The problem is they get hammered on from somebody who's got an MBA degree and just says like, well, you do that, you're going to lose your job or something like that, or they get threatened, like, that, I don't know, I'm not making any allegations over here, that like, that somebody has said something like that, but it does happen. People are scared. They have reached out to me and says like, sorry, I'm your friend, but I can't send patients to you because I will lose my job. So those things are not good. They shouldn't happen. People, as a doctor, we should have a right to choose what is best for the patient, and the patient should have right to choose what is best for them. It shouldn't be the corporation or administration making decisions like, what is best for the hospital or corporation.
That's another fantastic point. I think too many, especially young physicians that are coming out, that are in training, they see no other options. There are no, to them, safety lies within the hospital, right? But I think it's becoming more and more clear that it is very hard as an employed physician to not pay heed to what your masters are directing you or pushing you to do. So, so I think, if you want to do what's best for your patients, I'm clearly biased. Everyone on this panel is biased because we're all private. But I think if you want to do what's best for your patients, if you want to be the most ethical physician you can be, this is for the future doctor, future young doctors. You need to be private. You need to not have a master that you're some downstream revenue maker for. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic point. I hope many people hear the call.
That's right, and I absolutely agree, because I used to work for the hospital system. I have lived in that environment, and I know from personal experience, because most of the time it is like, how many patients you see and how much money you're generating. It's not about the patient care factors comes later on. First comes the financial. How much money? Are you beneficial to the system? Are you making enough money? Are you sustainable? Those are the factors first. Then it comes down, are you really a good doctor? You're hurting the patient. Those things comes down later on. And which is unfortunate, shouldn't happen as a healthcare professional. Our job is to help people, not just milk money out of them.
Right. Absolutely right. Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Dr. Singh. Michelle, any other?
That's
point?
Very inspiring. That's great. And we wish you the best. And we'll be in touch to see how things are progressing.
Absolutely.
Sure. Thanks very much. Just let me know where the link is. Send me the link, and just if you have any follow-up questions or anything, just let me know.
Dr. Singh, are you on Twitter?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, you are. What is your Twitter handle?
I think I have two. One is, I think, for site imaging, and one is my name. I think it's Gajendra. I have to see what it is, because I don't go on Twitter too often.
All right, we'll have to get you on. All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, thank you much.
We'll tag you as well on there. All right, thanks so much, Dr. Singh.
All right, take care. Okay.
Take care.
Bye.